Pay taxes now while values are low and tax rates are low. In this episode, we are going to address the question, should I get my money out of my tax-deferred IRAs and 401ks sooner than later? Yes. I want to show you why and how to do it strategically. So generally speaking, there are unique situations and times that you may want to seize the opportunity to get money out of your tax-deferred IRAs or 401ks sooner. Now, while values may be lower or tax rates may be the lowest you will ever be in. So oftentimes when the market crashes and we have a downturn, people seem to get frustrated, anxious, paralyzed, and they want to hunker down and wait till their account values get back up to the highest point again before they take any action. No, this is a wonderful opportunity to get the taxes over and done with on those IRAs or 401ks while the values are less. Also, there are certain periods of time where tax rates may be the lowest rates you will ever see the rest of your life. For example, after September 11th of 2001, President Bush lowered taxes. The 28% tax rate went down to 25%. And so I told many people back then, hey, get your money out, get the taxes over and done with at 25% instead of 28%. And they were very grateful because we rode the market back up again tax-free after that 3-year recession. Well, the same thing is true. Donald Trump lowered that 25% down to 22%. In fact, from the 22% bracket, all the way up to just 24% is $155,000 more income that a married couple filing a joint tax return can pay just 2% higher tax, which is still 1% less than the low rates that Bush put in that were actually 3% less than where we'll probably go back to. So your current tax bracket is likely the lowest bracket you will ever be in. I'm a tax strategist. I'm Doug Andrew, and I've been doing this for 45 years. I want you to save unnecessary tax. So let me give you an actual example using a little flip chart so that you can understand how to seize this opportunity to save unnecessary tax. So let me give you a specific example. I'm going to simplify this because everybody's circumstances are a little bit different. But there are a lot of people who will have their IRA or 401k account values at a high point just before a major crash. This happened in 2001 to 2003. It happened in 2008. It happened from mid-February of 2020 to mid-March. In 30 days, people saw their account values go down by 1/3 because the Dow Jones was at about 30,000 and it dropped to about 20,000 in 30 days. And so people get really anxious and frustrated. I understand that, but I said, hey, here's the opportunity here. So let's say in your IRA and 401k accounts, before the crash, you had $900,000 accumulated in there. And it was in the market, of course. And then after the crash, you saw that drop down by 1/3. And this was true for many people. Instead of $900,000, they were down to $600,000. And what do most people do? They hunker down and they just say, oh, I've got to wait. I can't do anything. I got to get back what I lost. And so they want to get back to this high water mark of 900,000. Now, sometimes that happens in 6 months. Sometimes it takes 4 years, like back in 2004 to 2007, it took 4 years to make up for a 40% loss. In 2008, when people lost 40%, it took 4 years to get back to break even because a 40% loss has to be followed by a 67% gain. A 33% loss, see, that's a 33% loss down to 600, but a 33% loss has to be followed by a 50% uptick in the market, 50% gain. See, what's 50% of 600? 300. So this has to increase 50% to make up for the 33% that it lost. Does that make sense? It takes sometimes a year, 2, 3, 4 years for that to happen. Here's the point. If you wait around for that to happen and the market goes back up again to your value of 900,000. Now, how did that happen? Well, maybe the government passed an economic stimulus package, a bailout package, to the tune of over $2 trillion, which they did in March of 2020. And where's that money going to come from? Do you know that's about half of what the IRS collects in an entire year in taxes? They're going to have to raise taxes. Hello? And so the Congressional Budget Office, the General Accountability Office estimates that taxes will likely have to go up to probably 50%, 60, 70%, especially if initiatives gain popularity like Medicare for All or free college or whatever. Let's just use 50%. Here, maybe you were in a 33% bracket. That's not all your money. 900,000 is the IRA 401k balance, but only 600,000 of that was actually your money. If it's 600,000, only 400,000 of that is your money because a third of that belongs to Uncle Sam in a 33% bracket. But let's just say taxes go up now to 50%. What's 50% of 900? 450,000. So you wait and it rebounds to 900. Now taxes, okay, we're going to put over here, this is tax. Taxes in the future now at 50% are 450. So you subtract out the 450 and what are you left with? The remaining $450,000 to buy gas, groceries, prescriptions, golf green fees. That's pretty pathetic. And based on the financial services industry standard, most people only take out 4% of that for retirement. That's pretty pathetic to be able to have only 4% of 450,000. I mean, 4% of $1 million is only 40 grand a year and you have to pay tax on it. Can you survive with a nest egg of 450,000 net to you? So let me show you what savvy, smart people did when the market was down. So this is what I advised many people to do back in 2001 to 2003, in 2008, and again in 2020 when the market was down. And they thank me to this day because of the amount of taxes they saved and how they protected themselves. So using that same example, let's say the IRAs and the 401ks had a value of that 900,000 before the crash. This would have been mid-February of 2020. And 30 days later, mid-March, we notified over 200 people we knew still had money in these accounts and said, sell. Get out, get out. And it depended upon how much and their tax thresholds. But when the value in the market came down to $600,000 in a 33% combined federal and state income tax rate, because I want to keep apples to apples here, what did I share in the previous example? In a 33% bracket, you're going to pay how much in tax if you take the money out? A third. So that's 200,000. So you take care of tax with 200,000 instead of postponing and deferring and then shelling out 450,000. And so that is the tax liability. Now, that leaves 400,000. That 400,000, what do you do with? You reposition that into a tax-free vehicle. What's my favorite tax-free vehicle? The laser fund. The laser fund allows you to accumulate your money tax-free and then be able to access it tax-free. You can put in large sums. You can dip into it without IRS penalties. It blossoms in value when you pass away. It has all kinds of benefits, a lot more than a Roth. Now, you could actually roll this over into a Roth. This is the net that would go over into a Roth, and that's a step in the right direction. But see, Roths have too many strings attached. I have episodes that explain why the laser fund is called the rich man's Roth. It has 6 benefits instead of a Roth that only has 2 benefits. So why would I own a Roth when I can have a rich man's Roth, a laser fund that has a whole bunch more and it doesn't cost me anything for those benefits? Here's the key. If 400,000 goes into a laser fund, you link it to the market, but you don't put it in the market. This is called indexing. So I ride the market up. The market comes up 50% again. Remember, a 33% loss has to be followed by a 50% gain. 50% of 400 is 200. So now my laser fund has $600,000 in it, and that is tax-free. Now, if I have $600,000 tax-free, what did my IRA or 401k have in it? It rebounded to 900, and people go, mine has 900, yours only has 600. Hello? Your 900, only 600 of that was your money. the other 300 wasn't yours. So there's no difference except what? If taxes go up, and they will. When taxes go up to 50%, the 900,000 only nets you 450. I have 600. How much more is 600,000 than 450? I have an extra 150 grand, and I got my taxes over and done with for 200,000 instead of waiting to get back up to 900 again in a tax-deferred IRA or 401k, and then owe tax of 450,000. I hope you're getting it. So here are 5 key takeaways. You want to consider getting money out of those IRAs and 401ks while tax rates are low and the values are low. You want to reposition that after-tax money into vehicles that are going to be tax-free from now on. I would recommend the laser fund because a properly structured and maximum funded laser fund will give you the utmost liquidity, safety, and predictable rates of return, and they're tax-free to boot. Then you want to use indexing so you ride the market back up again tax-free and you don't lose when it crashes next time. Also, you want to understand and learn how the laser fund will help eliminate the dangers of taxes, inflation, and market volatility. So I implore you to get educated and watch this episode right here. This will explain what the laser fund is, and you'll have an opportunity to get a copy of my book absolutely free. You just pay the shipping and handling.